If you've been taking a blood pressure pill every single morning, Amlodipine, Losartan, or Lisinopril, how confident are you that you truly understand what that pill is doing inside your body right now? Not what the label says. Not the one sentence your pharmacist printed on the bag. I mean actually understand it. The way it works, the way it can quietly create unexpected effects under the right conditions, and the warning signs that separate a minor inconvenience from something that needs a doctor's attention right away. Most people I talk to, educated people, careful people, people who read the news and manage their own finances, pause when I ask that question. And that pause tells me everything. Because here is the thing, these are not weak medications. These are not vitamins. Amlodipine, Losartan, and Lisinopril are powerful drugs that change how your heart, blood vessels, and kidneys function every single day. And yet millions of seniors take them on autopilot with very little understanding of what to watch for, what to avoid, or when something that feels ordinary is actually a signal worth paying attention to. Today, I want to change that. My name is Wells, and this channel exists for one reason, to give you the kind of clear, practical, honest health information that too often gets left out of a 10-minute doctor's appointment. By the time this video ends, you are going to understand these 3 medications in a way that makes you safer, more confident, and far less likely to be caught off guard. And I want to start with a story about a gentleman named Walter, because his experience sets up everything we need to talk about. Before we begin, take a second and tell me your name and where you are tuning in from. I go through the comments and I genuinely want to know who I am speaking to today. Walter was 74 years old, a sharp, methodical former engineer. He took his medications exactly as prescribed, never missed a dose. His daughter had set up a pill organizer labeled Monday through Sunday, and Walter treated it like a project schedule. When his doctor added amlodipine to his regimen, Walter figured, one more blood pressure pill, same category, different name, no big deal. That assumption cost him several months of unnecessary worry and reduced quality of life. 3 months after starting amlodipine, Walter's feet had changed so much he could no longer fit into any of his regular shoes. His legs felt heavy by 4 in the afternoon. He started limiting how much he walked because movement made it worse. He told his son he thought his circulation was failing. He started searching online and convinced himself he was developing heart failure. He was frightened, and he was suffering in silence. The real explanation was something much simpler and much more manageable, but Walter did not know it because nobody had ever explained to him that amlodipine, Losartan, and Lisinopril are not the same kind of drug. They all lower blood pressure. That is where the similarity ends. And understanding that difference is what this video is about. Amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker. It works by relaxing the smooth muscle inside the walls of your arteries, reducing the resistance that blood has to push against. Less resistance means lower pressure. Lisinopril is an ACE inhibitor. It blocks a specific enzyme in your body called angiotensin-converting enzyme, which normally causes blood vessels to tighten. By blocking it, the vessels stay more relaxed, and pressure comes down. Losartan is an ARB, an angiotensin receptor blocker. It works at a similar point in that same blood pressure regulation system as Lisinopril, but through a slightly different mechanism. Same pathway, different door. 3 different mechanisms. 3 different side effect profiles. 3 completely different things to watch for in your body. When you understand that, you stop interpreting every symptom through a one-size-fits-all lens. And Walter's story becomes clear. His swelling was not heart failure. It was amlodipine doing exactly what amlodipine does in a significant percentage of people, relaxing the small arteries in the legs more effectively than the veins, causing an imbalance in fluid distribution that pools in the lower legs and ankles. Once that was identified and properly addressed, Walter was back in his walking shoes within weeks. The name on your prescription bottle is not just a label. It is a category. And the category tells you the pattern to watch for. Let us go through each one in detail. Let us talk about that swelling more specifically, because it is one of the most widely misunderstood side effects in all of blood pressure medicine, and it affects a surprisingly large number of people taking amlodipine. Here is what actually happens inside your body. When amlodipine relaxes the small arteries in your legs, blood flows into those legs more freely. But the veins, which are responsible for carrying blood back up to the heart, do not relax in the same way. So you get an imbalance. More blood coming in than going out. Pressure builds up in those tiny vessels near your ankles and feet, and that pressure eventually pushes fluid out of the vessels and into the surrounding tissue. The result is puffy ankles, socks that leave deep marks when you take them off, shoes that suddenly stop fitting comfortably, and legs that feel heavy and full by late afternoon. This is not fluid retention from eating too much salt. This is not your kidneys failing. This is not heart failure beginning. In most cases, it is a predictable physiological response to how amlodipine works in the body. Here is the part that can become genuinely problematic, not the swelling itself, but how people respond to it without guidance. Some people stop the medication on their own without telling their doctor, and their blood pressure climbs back up quietly. Others reduce their water intake because they believe they are retaining fluid, which is the wrong direction entirely. Some people, like Walter, simply endure in silence for months, reducing their activity level and losing quality of life that was completely recoverable. The right move, the one I want you to remember, is simple. Leg swelling on amlodipine is a conversation your doctor needs to know about. Not because the medication is necessarily wrong for you, but because there are adjustments, alternatives, and practical strategies that can make it far more manageable. Elevating the legs, timing of doses, supportive compression, or in some cases reconsidering which medication best fits your individual body, those are all options. But none of them happen if you suffer in silence. If you are taking amlodipine and you have noticed that heavy swollen feeling by the end of the day, please drop a comment below. You may be surprised how many people in this community are going through the exact same thing. Now let us talk about lisinopril and its most well-known side effect, one that affects a meaningful percentage of people who take it. The cough. Not a wet, productive cough. Not the kind of cough that responds to cough drops or antihistamines. A dry, scratchy, relentless tickle in the back of the throat that tends to be worse at night and does not go away no matter what you try. Here is what makes this particularly tricky to identify: it often does not start right away. Some people develop it within the first week. Others take 3 or 4 months before it appears. And by that point, the connection to lisinopril never even crosses their mind. Let me introduce you to Evelyn, a 71-year-old avid gardener who developed a persistent cough in late spring and immediately assumed it was pollen. The timing seemed completely logical. She used antihistamines, bought an air purifier, mentioned it to her doctor who ordered a chest X-ray that came back clear. 6 months later the cough was still there, disrupting her sleep almost every night. When someone finally asked her when she had started lisinopril relative to when the cough appeared, she went quiet. She had started the medication 11 months before. The cough had appeared about 4 months into treatment. She had never made the connection. Once the likely cause was identified and her physician switched her to Losartan, which works at a similar point in the same system but does not typically cause this type of cough, the throat irritation was gone within 2 weeks. 11 months of disrupted sleep resolved in 2 weeks, once someone connected the dots. Now, I need to draw a very clear line here because there is a symptom in the ACE inhibitor family that is not a nuisance, it is a situation requiring immediate medical attention. If you are on lisinopril and you develop swelling of your lips, tongue, face, or throat, especially if swallowing or breathing becomes difficult, call emergency services immediately. Do not wait. Do not take an antihistamine and see what happens. This is a rare condition called angioedema and it can become serious very quickly. A dry cough is a nuisance to discuss with your doctor at your next appointment. Throat swelling is an emergency. Please remember that distinction. Now let us move to Losartan, and a situation I find particularly striking because it does not come from doing something wrong, it comes from people doing what they sincerely believe is the right thing for their health. Losartan, like Lisinopril, works on the renin-angiotensin system, your body's blood pressure regulation pathway. One of the effects of this class of medication is that it can raise potassium levels in the blood. For most people, with appropriate monitoring, this stays within a safe range. But add certain common lifestyle choices on top of it, and the picture can change. Here is where it becomes counterintuitive. Many seniors who are told to reduce their sodium intake will purchase a salt substitute. These products, often marketed as the heart-healthy choice, sold right next to regular table salt, replace sodium with potassium chloride. So a senior who is genuinely trying to do the right thing for their heart is loading potassium into their system at every meal while simultaneously taking a medication that already tends to raise potassium levels. The combination can sometimes push potassium high enough to affect the electrical system of the heart. And here is what makes this worth knowing: elevated potassium does not always announce itself dramatically. It can present as unusual muscle weakness, persistent fatigue, leg cramping, tingling in the hands, or a fluttering irregular heartbeat. Sometimes there are very few symptoms at all, right up until there are serious ones. Electrolyte powders, certain meal replacement shakes, and some over-the-counter sports recovery drinks also carry meaningful potassium levels. They are not prescription products. Nobody thinks to mention them at a doctor's appointment. If you take Losartan or Lisinopril and you use a salt substitute or potassium-containing supplements regularly, that is worth mentioning to your prescribing physician so they can monitor accordingly. There is one scenario that I believe does not get nearly enough attention in conversations about blood pressure medications, and it directly affects seniors more than any other group. What happens to these medications when your body loses fluids? Not a serious illness. Not hospitalization. Just a bad stomach bug, a few days of reduced appetite, heavy sweating on a hot summer day, or simply not drinking enough water over a long weekend. When you are dehydrated for any reason, the same dose of Losartan or Lisinopril that was perfectly calibrated for a well-hydrated body can behave very differently. Your blood pressure may fall lower than intended. Your kidneys, which are already working harder to compensate for the fluid loss, may become more vulnerable. Dizziness, weakness, lightheadedness, or kidney strain can develop faster than most people expect. The medication did not change. Your body's internal environment changed, and the drug is now operating in conditions it was not calibrated for. This is one of the most practical things I can share with you today. Illness changes the rules. And if you do not have a plan for what to do when illness hits, whether to hold a dose, when to call your doctor, what symptoms should prompt a visit, you are leaving a meaningful gap in your own safety. That plan is something to ask your prescribing doctor for before you ever need it. A simple question: what should I do with my blood pressure medication if I get a stomach virus or cannot keep fluids down? It is one of the most important questions you can ask. And one of the least commonly asked. Has your doctor ever given you a sick day plan for your blood pressure medication? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I have a feeling most of you are going to answer the same way. I want to spend a moment on something that sounds minor and is not, that brief wobbly feeling when you stand up from the couch or get out of bed in the morning. The world tilts for just a second. You grab the doorframe, it passes, and you go about your day. For many seniors on blood pressure medications, this is a regular experience, and it is almost universally underreported because it seems too small to mention. In older adults, a few seconds of dizziness is enough to cause a fall. A fall is enough to cause a fracture. And a hip fracture in particular can alter an older adult's health trajectory in ways that take years to recover from. This is physics and biology working together in a way that demands respect and practical action. The dizziness happens because your medications are doing their job, lowering blood pressure. When you stand up quickly, your cardiovascular system has not had a moment to compensate. Blood pressure briefly drops. Blood flow to the brain momentarily decreases. You feel it as that lightheaded tilting sensation. The practical fix is often simple: rise slowly, sit on the edge of the bed for a moment before standing, hold something stable when getting up, and give your body a few extra seconds to adjust. But dizziness that happens regularly, that does not improve after the first few weeks on a medication, or any episode of near fainting, those deserve a real conversation with your doctor. The dose may need adjustment. Silence on this is not a small risk. Now I want to talk about something that almost no blood pressure video ever addresses. And for anyone over 50, this may be the most personally impactful piece of information in this entire video. We have talked about the well-known side effects of these medications: the swelling, the cough, the potassium concerns, the dizziness. But there is a less discussed consequence of being on long-term blood pressure management that compounds quietly in the background. And that is what happens to your muscles. Here is the biology. When blood pressure is a concern and activity levels drop, either because of side effects like leg swelling, dizziness when standing, or simply the general fatigue that can accompany cardiovascular medication adjustment, your muscles receive fewer movement signals. And muscle tissue is profoundly responsive to use. When it is not challenged regularly, it begins to shrink. Scientists call this process sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, and it accelerates dramatically after the age of 60, losing between 1 and 2% of total muscle mass per year without deliberate intervention. But here is what makes this especially important for anyone on blood pressure medications. Muscle tissue is one of the primary systems in your body responsible for absorbing glucose from the bloodstream. When muscle mass declines, blood sugar regulation becomes harder. And blood sugar instability is itself a risk factor for cardiovascular health. So the very condition these medications are managing can be made more difficult to manage over time if muscle loss is allowed to progress unchecked. It is a cycle that most patients are never told about. And here is the part that connects directly to cellular biology. After the age of 50, your muscle cells begin losing their natural stores of a compound called creatine, the molecule your muscles use to regenerate ATP, the energy currency that powers every single muscular contraction. When creatine levels are low, your muscles fatigue faster, recover more slowly, and respond less efficiently to the movement you do manage to get. The effort is there. The cellular fuel is diminishing. And for someone already managing the side effects of blood pressure medication, that energy deficit can make staying active feel genuinely difficult in a way that is not just about willpower. Over 500 peer-reviewed studies have examined creatine monohydrate supplementation across adult populations, and the evidence for older adults is among the most compelling in the entire scientific literature. Seniors who supplement with the clinical dose of 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day, while also engaging in consistent resistance movement, show measurable improvements in muscle strength, muscle mass retention, exercise capacity, and even cognitive performance. Research shows up to 25% improvement in strength and 20% improvement in endurance after 10 weeks of consistent use. That is not a marginal benefit. For someone managing blood pressure and trying to stay active, that is life-changing. Now, before I tell you which creatine product I recommend and why, I want to tell you something that shocked me when I first researched this category. An independent investigation published in the trade journal Nutraceuticals World found that 8 out of 10 top-selling creatine gummy brands on Amazon failed third-party laboratory testing. 3 of those brands contained literally zero creatine in the finished product. One delivered just 0.5% of what the label claimed. The reason is chemistry. Creatine monohydrate is sensitive to heat. During the gummy manufacturing process, the cooking temperatures convert creatine into a byproduct called creatinine, a waste product your kidneys simply excrete. Most manufacturers test their raw ingredients before cooking and put those numbers on the label. After cooking, after the actual product is made, the creatine is largely gone. The label is technically based on real numbers. The product in your hand is a different story. You could be taking a creatine gummy every day thinking you are protecting your muscles and getting almost nothing from it. The product I want to tell you about is FusiForce, made by Wellness Nest. And what makes FusiForce stand apart is straightforward. They spent 10 months developing a manufacturing process that preserves creatine through the cooking process. And then, critically, they verify the result by sending every single batch to Eurofins, one of the world's most respected food safety and nutrition analysis laboratories, for testing after cooking. Not before. After. And they publish every certificate of analysis on their website. Every batch. Every result. Completely open. Nothing hidden. The verified result is 99% pure creatine monohydrate, 5,000 milligrams, the full clinical dose, in just 3 gummies per day. NSF certified for sport. And they add something no other creatine gummy on the market includes: 50 milligrams of Panax ginseng root extract standardized to 10% ginsenosides. Panax ginseng has been shown in multiple peer-reviewed studies to support sustained energy, reduce fatigue, and enhance cognitive clarity, benefits that are especially meaningful for seniors managing long-term cardiovascular health. The gummies are free of gluten, soy, added sugar, fillers, hormones, and artificial additives. They come in individual serving pouches, not a bulk jar that sticks and degrades. Wild blueberry and green apple flavors. 90-day money-back guarantee on every order. The link to their published Eurofins lab reports and their product page is in the description below. Read the reports before you decide. A company that publishes every test result from every batch has nothing to hide, and that transparency is exactly what seniors deserve. Let me bring everything together with a practical framework. Managing blood pressure medications well and protecting your muscle health are not competing goals. They work together, and the approach is simpler than most people realize. First, know your medication category. Amlodipine, Losartan, and Lisinopril are 3 different mechanisms with 3 different side effect profiles. Understanding which one you take helps you know what to watch for and what conversations to initiate with your doctor. Second, report side effects, do not endure them. Leg swelling on amlodipine, a persistent dry cough on Lisinopril, unusual fatigue or muscle weakness on Losartan, these are all information your doctor needs, not inconveniences to silently accept. Third, ask for a sick day plan before you need one. What should you do with your dose if you are unable to keep fluids down for more than 24 hours? That answer should come from your prescribing physician. Fourth, rise slowly. Every time. From the bed, from the couch, from the car. Give your cardiovascular system the few seconds it needs to adjust. It is a small habit with a significant safety payoff. Fifth, and this is the one that most blood pressure content never reaches, protect your muscles actively. Consistent gentle resistance movement, even chair-based exercises, resistance band work, or simple bodyweight movements, combined with daily creatine supplementation at the verified clinical dose gives your muscles the stimulus and the cellular fuel they need to maintain the strength and function that keeps you independent. Muscle is not separate from cardiovascular health. It is directly connected to it. Protect both, and you protect your future. Blood pressure monitoring tip: blood pressure is not a fixed number. It moves throughout every hour of every day based on sleep, caffeine, stress, activity, and hydration. A single high reading on a difficult morning does not mean your medication is failing. A single low reading after sweating heavily in the garden does not mean your dose is too strong. What matters is the pattern over time, measured consistently, same arm, same time of day, after 5 minutes of quiet rest. Track it, log it, and bring the record to your appointment. Let patterns guide the conversation, not individual readings taken in moments of anxiety. I want to close with something direct. The information in this video, how these medications work, what side effects are worth discussing versus watching, what to do when illness hits, how your muscles and your cardiovascular health are connected, this is the kind of detailed, practical guidance that most people never receive. Not because doctors do not care, but because the modern clinical appointment simply does not have room for it. You deserve to understand the medications you take every day. You deserve to know what your body is telling you and whether that signal needs immediate attention or a scheduled conversation. You deserve to know that there are strategies, including nutritional and supplementation strategies that are well supported by peer-reviewed research, that can help you stay strong, stay active, and stay independent while managing your blood pressure effectively. If this video has given you something useful today, please tap the like button. It helps this channel reach more seniors who need exactly this kind of information. Subscribe so you never miss a new video. And leave a comment below telling me your age, which medication you take, and whether you have ever experienced any of the side effects we discussed today. I read every single comment. Your story matters, and it often becomes the reason someone else finds the clarity they were looking for. The link for FusiForce creatine gummies, including their publicly available Eurofins laboratory reports from every batch, is in the description. Look at the science. Verify it yourself. And take your muscle health as seriously as you take your heart health. They are the same conversation. Stay informed. Stay active. And I will see you in the next video.